My brother stole my inheritance while I paid all his debts, so I took everything back quietly and left him with nothing he could ever claim. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one holding my family together with my bare hands. It wasn't some noble choice or heroic intention, it was survival. Bills, overdue notices, broken appliances, emergency calls at 2 a.m., all of it somehow landed in my lap because I was the responsible one. I grew up believing that if I didn't step up, no one else would, and honestly, that belief wasn't wrong. My younger brother, Liam, was the exact opposite. He was the charming, loud, magnetic kid who could walk into a room and make everyone adore him within 5 minutes. My parents treated him like a miracle they were blessed with, even though he never finished anything he started. He just needs time, my mom used to say, brushing off every failure like it was an accidental spill on the kitchen floor. Meanwhile, I was expected to clean up after him, literally and financially. The first time I bailed him out was over rent. He showed up at my door, eyes wide and voice shaking, saying, "Dude, please, they're going to kick me out." Then came the credit card debt. Then the business loan he swore would change his life but ended up collapsing within 6 months. Each time he promised, "I'll pay you back, I swear," but those promises evaporated the moment he walked away. My parents never thanked me for helping him. Instead, they layered guilt over me like a heavy blanket. "Family supports family," my dad would say, as if that single sentence made everything okay. And for a long time, I convinced myself it did. The only thing that kept me going, kept me sane, was the inheritance my grandfather left specifically for me. It felt like a small light at the end of a never-ending tunnel. I didn't know then that Liam's entitlement would grow into something far darker, something I never saw coming. Looking back, Liam's entitlement didn't start in adulthood, it was woven into him from the moment he realized he could get away with anything. I remember being 16, studying for an exam, when he barged into my room and said, "Cover for me. I'm sneaking out." He didn't ask. He told. And when he got caught hours later, smelling like a bonfire and bad decisions, my parents yelled at me for not watching him properly. That was the first time I realized the rules in our house bent around Liam like he was the sun we were all orbiting. As we grew older, that dynamic metastasized into something heavier. Liam talked constantly about big opportunities, major connections, and life-changing plans, but none of them lasted more than a week. He'd look me dead in the eye and say things like, "Bro, I'm so close to success, I just need a little help," while tapping his foot and scanning his phone as if asking me for money was a casual inconvenience. And every time I hesitated, my parents stepped in with their usual chorus of, "He just needs support, you're the stable one, don't abandon your brother." What they didn't realize, or refuse to see, was how drained I was. Emotionally. Financially. Physically. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the air thick with the smell of old bills and cheap instant coffee, wondering why I was the one paying consequences for choices I never made. Meanwhile, Liam slept soundly, knowing someone would always clean up after him. I tried setting boundaries. I actually said the words, "I can't keep doing this for you, Liam." He shrugged, laughed, and said, "Relax, man. You've got things under control." "I don't." He meant it as a joke, but it sat in my chest like a weight. What I didn't know then was that his entitlement was about to cross a line so deep, so calculated, that it would change everything I believed about family. The only real security I ever had was the inheritance my grandfather left for me. He told me about it when I was 21, sitting with me on the back porch while the summer air smelled like cut grass and old wood. "You're the one who keeps the family together," he said quietly, his voice weathered but steady. "This is for you, not to be shared, not to be argued over." I didn't understand why he emphasized those words back then, but now I replay that moment like a warning I was too young to hear. My parents always suspected the money existed. They'd make comments at dinner like, "Your grandfather always favored you," or "I bet he left something substantial." Liam, of course, was worse. He'd grin at me with that lazy confidence and say, "Come on, man, just tell me how much it is. We're brothers. We can help each other out." I'd deflect, telling him it wasn't his business, but he always took that as me being selfish. The truth was simple: my grandfather entrusted me with something important, and I honored his wishes. I kept the inheritance between me and the lawyer, mostly because I knew how Liam operated. If he caught even a glimpse of it, he'd latch on like a leech. Still, the tension around the topic never really disappeared. I'd notice my parents exchange glances whenever finances came up. Liam started dropping hints more aggressively, like, if you shared, I wouldn't struggle so much, or Grandpa never liked me, so you should compensate. It was unsettling, but I didn't think they could actually do anything. The documents were secure, the will was clear, and legally everything was locked down. Or so I thought. Because somewhere along the line, something shifted, quietly, invisibly, and with consequences I couldn't even imagine. And the first sign was about to hit me harder than I was prepared for. The first red flag was so small I almost ignored it. A plain white envelope arrived in the mail, the kind with that chemical paper smell that sticks to your fingers. It was addressed to me but forwarded through my parents' house, which was strange enough. Inside was a notice from the estate office requesting updated beneficiary confirmation. My stomach tightened immediately. I hadn't requested any updates. I hadn't changed anything. I called my mom to ask why the paperwork went through their address, and she sounded oddly casual. "Oh, sweetheart, the lawyer said everything needed to be centralized," she replied, her voice too light, too breezy. "We're just helping you stay organized." But the way she rushed the words made something cold creep up my spine. It was the same tone she used when Liam crashed the car at 17 and she didn't want to admit whose fault it was. Then Liam started acting different. He walked around with this smug energy, tapping on his phone, humming to himself like he just won something. One night he looked at me and said, "Big change is coming, bro. You'll see." I asked what he meant, and he laughed, this hollow, cocky sound, and replied, "Don't worry. You always land on your feet." There was no reason his words should have unsettled me, but they did. The air around him felt charged, like static right before a lightning strike. Even my dad seemed tense, avoiding eye contact whenever finances came up. Once, I overheard my parents whispering in the kitchen, voices low, frantic, a sharp contrast to the clinking dishes and boiling soup, but when I walked in, they went silent instantly. Still, I pushed it aside. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself my family wouldn't do anything without telling me. But days later, another envelope arrived. This one wasn't asking for confirmation. It was notifying me of a completed change. And that's when the bottom truly started to crack beneath my feet. The day everything snapped into focus was a gray, humid morning, the kind where the air feels heavy like it's warning you something is coming. I opened the newest estate letter expecting another bureaucratic form, but the moment I read the first line, my vision blurred. Confirmation of beneficiary reassignment has been successfully processed. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I read it again and again, hoping the words would rearrange into something that made sense. I called the estate lawyer immediately. My voice cracked as I said, "I didn't authorize anything. What the hell is this?" There was a pause, long, heavy, tense, before he responded, "That's impossible. Your parents sent in the signed documents last week." I froze. "What documents?" He sighed, frustration leaking through the phone. "The ones stating you approved transferring the majority of the inheritance to your brother." It felt like someone punched me straight in the chest. I could barely breathe. "Those signatures weren't mine," I whispered. "I never signed anything." The lawyer's tone shifted, sharp and controlled. "Then we have a serious problem." I drove to my parents' house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The entire drive smelled of burnt rubber and panic. When I walked in, Liam was sitting on the couch, smiling like he owned the world. "You look stressed," he said, not even bothering to hide his satisfaction. "Maybe it's time you stopped hoarding what Grandpa left." My mom stepped between us, placing a hand on my chest like I was the one causing trouble. "Sweetheart, Liam needs this. You're stable." "He's not." It's only fair. My dad chimed in with, "You'll be fine. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I couldn't process their faces, the calmness, the entitlement, the way they convinced themselves this theft was moral. They had taken something sacred, something my grandfather entrusted to me alone. But the worst part was realizing this wasn't a mistake. This was a coordinated betrayal. And I had no idea how deep it really went. That night, after leaving my parents' house in a haze of disbelief, I drove straight to the estate lawyer's office. The building was dimly lit, the waiting room smelling like old carpet and stale coffee. I sat there shaking, replaying every word my family had thrown at me. When the lawyer finally called me in, he shut the door gently behind us and said, "There's something you need to see. Something your grandfather prepared." I blinked at him. "What are you talking about? They already stole everything." He opened a locked drawer, pulled out a thick sealed envelope, and slid it across the desk. "This was meant for you only if something like this happened." His voice was firm, like he'd been waiting years for this moment. My chest tightened as I tore it open. Inside were papers, bank details, instructions, an entire second inheritance fund I never knew existed. A larger one. A protected one. A version designed specifically to bypass my parents entirely. My grandfather's handwriting was shaky but clear. "If they betray you, this is your safeguard. Only the responsible one will find it." I swallowed hard, feeling something hot. I left the lawyer's office with the envelope pressed against my chest like it was the last warm thing in the world. The night air smelled like cold asphalt and rain, and every step I took felt heavier than the one before. I wasn't just betrayed, I was humiliated, manipulated, treated like a resource instead of a son. But underneath the pain was something sharper. Something steadier. A kind of clarity I'd never felt before. For the first time in my life, I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. The next morning, I walked into my parents' house acting quiet, subdued, broken, even. Liam was in the kitchen eating cereal like he hadn't stabbed me in the back. "Rough night," he smirked, tapping the spoon against his bowl. I forced a weak smile. "Yeah, just trying to accept everything." My mom patted my shoulder like I was a child who finally learned to share his toys. "Good. It's for the best." I nodded, pretending to agree, pretending to be defeated. Pretending to be exactly what they needed me to be, docile, resigned, obedient. But inside, I was stitching together every detail, the forged signatures, the manipulation, the years of enabling Liam's disasters. The lawyer had already confirmed that with the second inheritance secured, I could take legal action without risking what my grandfather left me. "Collect everything," he told me. "Every message. Every signature. Every slip-up." So I started gathering evidence quietly. Screenshots. Paper trails. Conversations where my parents accidentally admitted to what they did. Liam bragging about his win in texts he thought I'd never use against him. I even recorded a few of his more arrogant comments, like when he said, "Finally, Grandpa's money is going to someone who deserves it." Every piece was another thread in the net I was weaving around him. They thought they'd taken everything from me. But they had no idea what I was about to take back. And they definitely had no idea what it would cost them. I thought the betrayal had reached its peak, but I was wrong. It was a quiet Sunday evening, the kind where the house smelled like overcooked rice and floor polish, when my parents called me over to talk. The moment I stepped into the living room, I felt it, this thick, suffocating tension hanging in the air. My mom sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed. My dad stood behind her, jaw tight. Liam lounged on the recliner, grinning like he'd already won. My dad was the first to speak. "You need to stop causing problems," he said, his voice unusually stern. I stared at him. "Problems? I'm the one who was robbed." My mom's voice cracked through the room like glass breaking. "Robbed? Stop being dramatic. Liam needed that money. You don't." I felt my throat tighten. "It wasn't yours to give. Grandpa trusted me." "Only me." Liam muttered under his breath, Always the victim, aren't you? I snapped. You forged my signature. You lied to me. You handed over something that wasn't yours. My mom stood up, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare accuse us. After everything we've done for you. I laughed, but it wasn't really laughter, it was something broken and shaking. Everything I've done for this family, you mean? Then she dropped the sentence that knocked the air out of me. Maybe if you weren't so selfish, we wouldn't have had to step in. Selfish. They called me selfish. The room tilted. My legs went weak. For the first time in my life, I realized my parents didn't just enable Liam, they genuinely believed I owed him my entire future. I was nothing more than a backup plan they could drain whenever Liam failed. And in that moment, standing in the living room I grew up in, the walls lined with photos of a family that never really existed, I hit my breaking point. I wasn't just betrayed. I was alone. And they still had no idea what was coming next. The day after that confrontation, I woke up with the kind of clarity that feels like cold steel in your chest. My family had already decided I existed to serve Liam, so I stopped trying to convince them otherwise. The morning air coming through my cracked bedroom window smelled like dust and distant rain, and for once, instead of anxiety, I felt purpose. I opened my laptop and started dismantling the support system I'd built for Liam over the years. One cancellation at a time. First was his car insurance. Then the credit card autopay I'd been covering for months. Then the co-signed bank loan. Then the utilities tied to my name because he needed help getting approved. Each confirmation email felt like a quiet victory. I didn't say a word to anyone. Around noon, Liam called me. Bro, my insurance just got declined. Did the payment bounce? No, I said calmly. I canceled it. There was a pause, then his voice spiked. Why would you do that? I rely on you. That's the problem, I replied. You rely on everyone except yourself. He cursed at me, yelling loud enough that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. You're screwing me over. I hung up without responding. By evening, the texts started rolling in from creditors who'd been trying to reach him but always found me instead. Now they couldn't. Now the mess was landing exactly where it belonged. My parents tried calling too, but I didn't answer. I let their messages pile up. You're being cruel. You need to fix what you broke. Liam is panicking. Help him. I didn't respond to a single one. For the first time in my life, I wasn't cleaning up after him. I was letting him face consequences he'd dodged for decades. But what I didn't expect, what I couldn't have predicted, was just how fast everything would fall apart once the safety net was gone. And the collapse was about to hit him all at once. The unraveling started faster than even I imagined. 2 days after I cut everything off, I was sitting at my desk when Liam called again, this time sounding nothing like the arrogant, smirking brother who stole my inheritance. His voice was frantic, breathless, the background filled with muffled shouting. They're towing my car, he blurted. Right now. They said the insurance lapsed and the loan's overdue. What did you do? I leaned back, listening to the quiet hum of my ceiling fan. I stopped saving you, I said softly. You can't just leave me like this, he yelled. I need that car. You needed a lot of things, I replied. Responsibility was one of them. He hung up on me, but that was just the beginning. By the end of the week, his landlord called me, thinking I still guaranteed his rent. The man sounded irritated, the smell of fresh paint and city dust drifting into the hallway as I stepped outside to take the call. Your brother is 3 months behind, he said bluntly. If he doesn't pay by Friday, eviction proceedings begin. For the record, I told him, I'm no longer responsible for anything tied to Liam. The landlord exhaled sharply. Then he's out. Word spread fast. Liam's credit score tanked. His bank froze the inheritance he stole due to the ongoing dispute. He couldn't get approved for loans, couldn't keep up with payments, couldn't run from the avalanche he'd created. My parents were livid. My mom called me crying. How could you let this happen to your brother? My dad snapped, fix it. Now. I answered with a calmness that scared even me, no. Meanwhile Liam spiraled, calling, texting, cursing, blaming everyone but himself. At one point he yelled, "You ruined my life." But he ruined his own. I just stopped cushioning the fall. And when he finally hit rock bottom, when he had nothing left to lose, that's when he showed up at my door. His face was pale. His voice shook. And he said something I never thought I'd hear. The night Liam showed up at my door, the hallway outside my apartment smelled like damp carpet and old metal from the elevator. He looked nothing like the confident, smug brother who had stolen my inheritance. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled, his hands trembling at his sides. For a moment, I felt that old instinct, to fix things, to steady him, but it died the second he opened his mouth. "Please," he whispered, voice cracking. "I need your help. I'm getting evicted tomorrow. I don't know what to do." I stood completely still. "You should have thought about that before forging my name." He flinched like I slapped him. "I didn't forge it. Mom and Dad said. I cut him off. I have the documents. I know exactly what happened." Before he could respond, my parents appeared behind him. They must have followed him, because my mom pushed past him and marched right up to me. "We need to talk," she demanded, her eyes sharp, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. My dad crossed his arms, jaw tight. "Enough of this punishment. You're tearing this family apart." I let them inside, mostly because I wanted this over with. The apartment lights flickered softly as they settled in my living room, the tension thick enough to taste. My mom started first. "You need to undo whatever mess you made. Give Liam access to the rest of the inheritance. Help him get back on his feet." I stared at her. The inheritance he stole? Or the one he never knew existed? Silence. Then my dad scoffed. "Stop being dramatic. You're acting like a victim." I walked to my desk, opened the drawer, and placed the folder on the table. "This," I said, "is everything. The forged forms. The texts. The lawyer's statements. And the second inheritance Grandpa protected from all of you." My parents froze. Liam's face drained of color entirely. For the first time, the room wasn't filled with excuses. It was filled with fear. And I wasn't done yet. The silence in my living room felt like it had weight, pressing against all of us. My parents stared at the folder like it was a live grenade, and Liam just kept shaking his head, whispering, "No, no, this isn't real." But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply watched the truth peel the entitlement off their faces one layer at a time. My mom was the first to speak. Why didn't you tell us?" I met her eyes. "Because Grandpa didn't trust you. And after what you did, he was right." She opened her mouth to protest, but nothing came out, just this soft, wounded breath, like she was realizing her role in all of this for the first time. My dad tried to salvage whatever pride he had left. "You can't just abandon your family," he snapped. "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said. "I'm finally choosing myself." He stepped forward, voice rising. "Liam is going to lose everything." "He already did," I replied. "But not because of me. Because of his choices. Because you taught him I would always pay the price." Liam collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "I can't do this. I can't start over," he muttered through shaky breaths. For the first time in his life, he wasn't blaming someone else. And somehow, that made me feel nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just a clean, empty space where obligation used to live. I gathered the folder, slid it back into the drawer, and walked to the door. "I'm done," I told them. "No more money. No more rescues. No more being your safety net." My mom's voice cracked. "Where will we go? What happens now?" "That's for you to figure out," I said softly. Just like I always had to. They left my apartment slowly, like people walking out of a funeral. And maybe they were mourning the version of me they used to exploit. Now, I live quietly. I invested the second inheritance. Bought my own place. Built a life that doesn't revolve around cleaning up someone else's wreckage. And Liam? He was left with exactly what he earned. Nothing he could ever claim again.